everybody, back for day 2. So I'm pretty new at this. So if there's problems, please let me know. Okay, so for today, here's what I want you to do. Either mental math wise or using your calculator. Here's a whole bunch of sets of warm-up problems. So pause the video, do these warm-ups. Okay, if you're not done yet, pause it. But now, just double check. These are just quick little warm-up problems. Did you get for number 1, -10? Number 2, -1. Be careful if you needed to do that. Number 3, remember a positive times a negative stays negative. Divisions, multiplication and division rules still same apply. So 3 and 4, they're still negative because of that, versus number 1, you're just adding. Number 5, anything times 0 is 0. And the last one, did you change it to plus a positive and just gave you a nice little +9. How'd you do? Again, if you did something wrong, did you find your mistake? Get all those cobwebs out of your brain. Okay, now properties, it's been a while. So here's what I want you to notice. Just go through these with me. These are something, do you see in number 1? Those are just flip-flopped by addition. So 2 plus 4 and 4 plus 2 are the same. That was called the commutative property. Do you remember that? Just a little reminder. Versus, for number 2, these are the exact same order. It's still all multiplication, but the parentheses moved. Do you remember that's associative property? Number 3 is almost too easy. What is anything plus 0? Well, anything plus 0 is itself. That's called the identity property. This one is of addition, but you could say anything minus 0, so there's also subtraction. Number 4, do you remember a number times its reciprocal? That's what it's trying to say. They cancel each other out. That's that reciprocal. That's the inverse property. This one's multiplication because that's what's happening. Now, anything times 0 is always 0. So that's just a 0 property. And this last one, it almost looks like number 2, but number 6, there's this plus sign within the parentheses, and usually we draw those little rainbow lines. Do you recall that's called the distributive property? So you just distribute what's outside the parentheses, the 12, to every term inside the parenthesis. So hopefully those words sound kind of familiar. You might not memorize them, but hopefully number 6 you could. Okay, so we have some vocabulary. I'm just going to go through it just in case you see this in directions. I'm not going to have a vocabulary quiz, but you'll see things a lot in directions before problems. So just so you know, what is a conjecture? It's any unproven statement. You have a lot of conjectures in science. You probably hear a lot of these terms in science. So it's kind of like, what do you think is going to happen? It's unproven, but could you maybe make a general connection? Okay, a rule or a theorem, once you prove something can work, it's called a rule, or more importantly in geometry, we call that a theorem. An equation, here's the thing in an equation. An equation has to have an equal sign. So just note, you should know that, I think. A linear equation is, it's not all, usually you see it as y equals mx plus b, but we also see anything, you keep the x and the a and b become numbers. So that's just a linear equation. Again, I'm not going to quiz you on these, but you're going to see these words. A solution, it's any answer that makes the problem true, specifically usually the equation, but anything is a solution. Inverse operations, things that undo each other. So this is when we're solving equations. So how do you get rid of plus something? You minus something. How do you get rid of multiplying by something? You divide by something. So you just kind of do the opposite. The inverse and the opposite, kind of the same. Equivalent equations, it's just two equations that look different, but that are actually the same, okay? So for example, is 4 plus 2 an equivalent equation to 2 plus 4? Or is 4 plus 2 equivalent to 3 times 2? Yep, it is. So again, just kind of things I think you know, but just be aware of. Okay, addition property of equality. So that's just saying if two things equal, if you add something to both sides of the equation, that equation is still going to equal or balance. Okay, subtraction, if the same two things equal, if you minus whatever the same thing is to both sides, you are going to get still the same equation, okay? So whatever I do to one side of the equation, I have to do the other. That's why I'm drawing these lines down the middle. Whatever you do to one side, you need to keep it balanced with the other side. Same thing happens here.
Satellite Her, please report to the main office. Mrs. Her, please report to the main office.
Okay, again, you have the same equation, but if I multiply the same thing to both sides, it's still the same. To keep that equation balanced, and dividing to keep the equation balanced. So again, we're going to use these in one-step equations. That's coming up. So again, this is kind of what you should think, a four-step plan. You know, do you understand what the problem is asking before you answer it? Did you read the directions? Do you have an idea of how to solve it? Did you make a plan? Did you actually solve the problem and answer what it's asking? And then did you go back, look back, and maybe check your answers? This is the key to algebra. Check to make sure your answers are reasonable. Just different ways, if it's verbal versus a diagram versus making an equation, just different ways you could possibly problem solve. Okay, so let's do some of these equations. Ready? So we're just going to go in order 1 through 9. First thing I'm always going to do, and this is where those addition properties, subtraction properties come into play. I draw the line, and then how do I get W by itself? Well, I do the opposite of plus 4, which is minus 4. And I rewrite, that cancels. This is how I expect to see the work. W equals 12. And then you're going to think, does 12 work if I put it back in for W? Always mental math, go back. Well, 12 plus 4 is in fact 16, but my final answer, in fact, is W equals 12. Okay. Number 2, I draw that line in, and I want X by itself. So what am I going to do? Now be careful, I'm going to minus 7. If you need a calculator, get it out. Cancel that, and I have X equals, now think of it as negative 12 minus 7, or plus a negative 7, and that's actually negative 19. That's the only way it's going to work when you check your solution. Okay, try number 3. And then I'm going to do it. So pause it and give it a try. Okay, I'm back. Now, how do I make the negative 15 go away? Think of a negative. How do I make that 0? I add 15 to make that 0. And you're seeing all the work I expect to see, right? So the 15's, the only time you can cancel those out, if those become 0, they go away, and you get 21. And you should double check your answer. Okay, now we're on to subtraction. What's the opposite of subtraction? Addition. And again, what makes negative 5 and plus 5? I can only cross those out If that becomes 0, and in fact it does, if I accidentally put minus 5 there, it would give me a negative 10, and I couldn't do that. And now 8 plus 5, or get your calculator out if you absolutely need it, or sometimes it's always good to check. Okay, does it matter if the variable's on the left or the right side? No, but we need to get y by itself. So how do I get rid of a minus 9? I add 9. Okay, does the side that have the variable, is that now by itself? Well, negative 9 plus 9 does in fact cancel out. So negative 2 plus 9 is a positive 7. Okay, if you're having questions, make a note of it so you can ask me questions. Please, 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 please. Okay, here's your line again. Now, 7 and Q are next to each other. That implies multiplication. So 7 times Q, what's the opposite of times? Divide, but I want you to write it as a fraction, please. No division symbols, as a fraction, please. And 7 over 7, we want this to be 1Q on the left side. Does 7 over 7, those cancel out to be 1 here? Yes, I do want 1Q. So the whole idea for multiplying and dividing is to have one of them left, and you have 5 here. Okay, same thing here. It's a division problem, so I'm going to divide by the number that's attached to the variable. So those can cancel to be a single 1. And now get your calculator out if you need to. I'll double check. Actually, in mine, I am doing it. Negative 52 divided by 4, and you get negative 13. And if I want to double check that, I just put 4 times negative 13 by rechecking it to see if it gives me negative 52. Now, the last 2 problems here imply division. This is how I want you to do this, please. How do you, I don't want you to write times 11 down here. Nope. We want to think back to that reciprocal or inverse. So the right side is saying Q divided by 11. I'm going to multiply by 11, or you can think of it as 11 over 1 to both sides. And what that does is cancels those 2 things out to be 1, because that would be 11Q over 11. Okay. This side gives me 33, and that gave me just Q or 1Q. Okay, so again, remember, this would be 11Q over 11, and then, and in fact, those would cancel out. Always double check. Well, what is, if Q is 33, and I put a 33 over 11, does that give me what I want it to be? You can check all of these answers, so you shouldn't get any wrong. Okay, the last one, now I'm going to multiply by negative 2, or negative 2 over 1 if you want to. What does that do? All that does is cancel those out, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So again, if I put a 30 in for n, does it work out? Okay, make notes if you have questions so you can contact me. So here's your homework. So in the Schoology page, you should be able to click right on page 8. You don't have to go into the book if you don't want to. Page 8's attached. Do the problems and then check them from the answer key. And then when you feel confident, go and do the learning check. The learning check is the formative for today. All these daily formatives you're going to have unlimited chances at. So if you get something wrong, you can go back in and redo it so you have a nice perfect score in Skyward. Okay, if you have questions, please let me know. Send me a quick email and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Have a great day.